everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this talk, Designing for the Real World in Augmented Reality. I especially want to thank you guys because you put this on your schedule, the last slot of the Max conference, which has had so much good content already. I really appreciate you coming and sticking to it this last day of Max. So I'll talk a little bit about myself in a second, but I wanted to kind of awaken the senses and play you a little video just to highlight some of the cool projects that we're excited about that other folks are doing in this space. So here we go. All right. Hopefully that woke you up if the stretching didn't. So great. So hello, I'm Chantel Benson. I'm a product manager at Adobe, and I get to work on what I think is a really cool, exciting space, which is the world of 3D and mixed reality. So yeah, I guess I feel like I have the best job in the world. And part of that job is, helping to build the products that you guys use every day to create incredible content and experiences. But because I'm a product manager, I like to find out about the people that are in the room, so our wonderful customers. So can I get a show of hands? How many people here are already working in augmented reality or virtual reality? You've published a few things? Okay, great. That's about like 5-10%, that's cool. Okay, you're gonna ask me really tough questions, and I'll try to have answers for you. How many people here work in Photoshop or Illustrator on a daily basis? Okay, it's a solid 100%, I like it. How many folks in here would say that they are a 3D expert? Like you can model, you can light, you can rig, any of those things? Okay, cool. So you're the people everyone comes knocking on the door of to make them cool stuff. Awesome. Well, what we're really excited about at Adobe is the fact that this space right now is so exciting and so, it's really the moment for it. And so what we're gonna talk about today is how to get started and some of the workflows that we've identified from folks at companies like Adidas. But I like to front load all my talks with the most salient points so that when you get to the end of it, you remember the really golden nuggets. And the first one is we want you to really feel like with the system that we're building that you can create these experiences yourself as a designer. And more importantly, because we're Adobe, we want you to feel that you can use the tools you already know and love to create content that works in this space. So take that to heart. That's lesson number one. Number two is, who here has seen the short film Hyper Reality? Okay, cool. If you haven't, check it out. This is not my artwork, but you can check it out on Vimeo. I think it's about 6 minutes. It is, it's basically a dystopian future where there's been no thought or limits placed on what digital content gets projected onto your reality. And I firmly believe that that could be the future, but we're better than that. And that's why we need to have designers have that voice in this world, because without it, it could get really ugly. And we don't need that. Life can be beautiful. Let's make augmented life also beautiful and thoughtful and well-designed. So get into it because we need you. So I think I covered this already, but we're here to talk about AR, why Adobe feels it's important, and then some of the pipelines that we've identified, going over the pain points that we have heard about from existing customers, and then what Adobe is building to address those pain points and really remove barriers so that you can get started right away. And with that, let's talk about it. Let's go back to the very, very high level here, for those of you who aren't living and breathing this every day yet, the difference between AR and VR is just this. AR adds to your reality. There's things that are superimposed on the world around you, and you're still connected to that world. While in virtual reality, everything is virtual, so it replaces your reality. You are in somebody's world that they've created, and you're not connected to the people and place that around you. And this, I start here because we get a lot of questions about is this system going to have VR? I think in the future we're just going to kind of have a general category for all of these types of things. We're starting with AR at Adobe because there's about 1 billion devices today in the market that are AR enabled. And by that I mean this. So we're all walking around with one. We can't tear our eyes away from it. And none of us explicitly went out and said, I want to buy an AR device. I'll do that on Saturday, In contrast, VR headsets, at least right now, are just a little too outside the range of the mainstream consumer. So whether that be for expense or because it makes people sick when they watch the experiences, or a number of other reasons, it's just not there yet, the scale. So we want to start where there are the most eyeballs and where we feel like the space is the most vital to get right. And of course, there's a lot of considerations for how to design in AR versus VR. So we gotta choose. We gotta focus so that we can nail that first one before we spread out. Okay. Oh, and I should add, I will take questions at the end, so hold them dear to your heart. And what I ask you to do when you ask a question is you have to first tell me what you want to make in AR. So think about that. Think about it really hard. And then try to be as succinct as possible so we can get through a lot of questions. So that's my ask of you. Okay, so what kinds of barriers do we hear about when we talk to people who are already doing this work today? The first one is getting content into any sort of system is a big pain. And because there's so many different tools for both creating the content and then also authoring the experiences, most of these pipelines are kind of really held together with duct tape and bubble gum, and we hear stories of people really like having to publish on the one device where it actually works and then sending that device across the country so that somebody else on the team can view it properly. And that's just, it doesn't help, it actually prevents iteration and real design work, because you can't actually see the thing that you have imagined in your head. Related, but I think even at the broader level, we hear from designers that, they're excited to be doing this stuff, but man, it's impossible to really, truly communicate what it is they want to see to the developer that has to then code that experience. So, and yes, that is an icon of a mime. So congratulations to me, I found an icon for a mime. The reason why he's up there is there's a lot of things you have to communicate when you are concepting in this space. For example, it's not a storyboard. It's hard to convey on a 2D storyboard how you want something to move in space and then how you want the consumer of the experience to actually interact with that thing. People do this and it's fine, but we hear from a lot of designers that they're literally like waving their arms around and sending a video of that to the developer that's then supposed to make that thing happen in the code. So trying to make sure that those things are taken care of and you don't even have to really think about it is where we've started in terms of the things that Project Aero is addressing. Okay, so I am going to show you a couple slides next that illustrate the workflows that we've heard from customers they're already doing today. And they're only to demonstrate kind of, what's out there and how fragmented these pipelines are. So here's one. You can see that there's several back and forths between 3D artist, a designer, developer, is at the heart of that. There are, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different applications involved. There's a couple file types. And then we've got the stakeholder way out there on the far side. That's the person that gets the phone that's sent across the country that they can then view this in and say, yes, this is what I wanted to pay for. So, so this is painful, right? Even if you need all of those applications to create the content that you want to create, all those back and forths they limit the number of times you can really iterate and refine and get something the way you want it. Here's a more simplified workflow, and this is, it's leveraging a system, Zapper, which is, they've been thinking about these problems for a long time now. And it's fine, but it's also still very, there's a lot of little loops here that you can lose yourself in and possibly never really get the thing that you wanted out of it. There's still a big, you still have to rely heavily on coding, on a developer to actually, use Unity, get that thing working the way you all hope it does, and then yeah, it's a lot of steps, and so so when we talk to customers like Adidas who are trying to work in this space, they've just tried to create these pipelines themselves, and this is what's out there, and it's perfectly fine, but we think that there's a better way. Speaking of Adidas, I do have a video here I'm going to play for you. This was produced before we could even talk about Project Aero, so they don't have a lot of reference to the work they've done with us, but as you saw on stage yesterday, they are a huge partner, and they're excited to replace some of those pipelines that you just saw that they had to create themselves with something more efficient and streamlined, because they're a big company, and they trying to replicate those very complicated pipelines doesn't scale. So here, I'll play the video and then we can keep talking. All right, so yeah, Adidas is one of our big partners, and what's exciting about them is that they're willing to kind of test out what we've got and kind of stress test it so that they can start to replace what the system we're building with what they've already done. So, and we will get to more 3D stuff in a second, but in the before that, let's go back to like what the overall system is that we're building. So, creating in AR with Project Aero. Here's our kind of world map. This is what is on the roadmap right now for Project Aero, and we really do think about this as a system. So it is comprehensive to include not just the authoring tool itself, which is the mobile app for now. We do really envision having a desktop component to it. But also, I think even more importantly is the content service. And by that we mean all the goodness that you shouldn't have to think about that makes it possible to take the content that you have today, that you've already been creating, and get it prepared and into a mobile device. So, I don't think I need to go into detail about the special sauce there. It involves the Creative Cloud, but you'll see in some of the demos I'm about to do that we put a lot of thought into how you work and try to minimize the number of steps it would take you to just, export and get it into an experience and start prototyping. Okay, so, one more thing about this slide. The things I want to point out, though, are that, of course, we are Adobe, so we are working closely with all the product teams to make sure we're optimizing workflows for, what if you want to bring in XD content? What if you want to bring in After Effects content? That's not where we've started yet. We've started with things like Photoshop and Adobe Dimension, but those other workflows are coming down the pipe. But in addition to that, we're not limiting where you get your content from. So, we have a rich marketplace on Adobe Stock for 3D assets, and that's growing more and more every day. And so that's a great spot to get 3D content. But then, if you have a 3D expert, several of you in the room, that can make amazing content, then the system is set up so that you can get that converted really easily too, to be used in the application. So just want to stress that we're optimizing workflows for working with Adobe content, but we're content agnostic. Like, you bring your stuff in, it should just work. Okay, so let's start with where you are. So you're a designer. You all raised your hand saying that you work in Photoshop or Illustrator every day. So you've probably got a lot of PSDs or AI files on your computer. How do you get that into the system to start previewing it in the app? It's pretty simple. It's an export option. So let's actually hop on over to Photoshop. Okay, good. And this is a PSD. Got all my awesome layers over here, and the nice thing about this poster is that we've thought about the layers in a way that plays with transparency and how you're going to experience it when it's in augmented reality. But you could create a flat image, and that could be the thing that you use to put in augmented reality. So I'm just turning layers on and off just to show you, the fun stuff that the artist did with all these layers upon layers of content. So right now in Photoshop, since we're only releasing a private beta, so this is what's called a project at Adobe. It's not officially in Photoshop today, but when we are ready to have the workflow be official, then it will be an export option in Photoshop. And I have right now it's like a script that I run to put that menu option in Photoshop, but it's as easy as saying export to Aero, and of course I have to save my document first, and then it will do its magic and send it over into the Creative Cloud for publishing. So then, if I want to look at how that looks in Aero, I believe I just hit number 2 here. Woo, it worked. Okay, so let's look at that file. Or you can just look at yourselves. Isn't that exciting? This is your reality. Okay. Here's that same file. And you can see that playing with all those layers really kind of blows the cover off what it means to have a PSD in 3D space. So this artist really pushed the boundaries of, hey, this is an image, but really, you can play with parallax and depth and transparency, things that might not be apparent to you right away, but really fun approach to signage or what have you. Okay, so that's enough of that. I go back here. Oh, some things to note about Aero itself. So I'm in the authoring space. or the editing space actually. And you'll notice that I can drag things out and place them. And I can, really play with scale. So just thinking about, if you're designing a statue for a park, or you just want to see a poster on the wall, these are all things that are really possible with Aero, and I can use 2 fingers to move it around. We also have some controls for, just easily rotating if you don't like using your fingers. And I'll note that, all the UI is being developed. So nothing is final about this UI, but we're trying to keep it as minimal as possible so that you can really have the canvas be at your disposal. Okay, so let's switch back to the computer. All right. Okay, so we put a PSD in augmented reality, and it's pretty cool. It's like, it's not just an image anymore. It can be so much more. I wanted to share with you some of the amazing projects that were done over the weekend. So who here knows who Russell Brown is? He's like this iconic mad scientist of Photoshop, and he runs a workshop prior to Max every year. And this year he had his class of 80 students actually do a project that involved Project Aero. So their assignment was to create a movie poster and then actually print that out, but then also think about how it could be published in an augmented space. So a few examples here that I wanted to share with you of just some really fun stuff that people were doing. So this one's most similar to what we just saw, just playing with, okay, these are all the elements of that composition, and how can you really push those layers around to have fun with the images. This next one is more photography based, and what I like about this is that, it's like thinking about how you would want to share a photo album with somebody, or have clients walk past different options for the type of artwork that you're proposing for a campaign. So really nice playing around with images there. And then this last one I wanted to highlight just because this guy just he really pushed on the concept of using that camera as the author and kind of like the cinematographer of that experience. So filming his AR experience and having fun with the pan. And those are all 2D assets. So pretty incredible stuff that can be made just with what you're already comfortable creating today. Okay, so now we're ready to start leveling up. And for those of you in the room who already 3D model, you can do your beautiful stuff, and you can fall asleep for the next 5 minutes if you want. What I want to talk about now is for people that have no modeling experience, but really want to get started adding dimensionality to, or content that is 3-dimensional. And I like to start with the concept of, the statement. Every 3D pipeline involves Photoshop in some way. The way that things appear on the surface of 3D objects is really just image files at the end of the day. So it's a matter of kind of looking under the hood and being able to apply your own artwork and digital images to the surface of 3D objects. And Adobe, has been thinking about this for a while. Like, they want to empower designers to be able to work in this space, but not have to go and learn really deep 3D software that can be expensive, and honestly, it can take years to really master and learn. So instead, Adobe said, okay, let's make something familiar, approachable, but still with enough complexity and power to serve the creative professional, and that is Adobe Dimension. So this is the workflow that we are highlighting here. But as I said, if you have 3D objects you already are working with, those can also be put into the system, and I can show you how that works. Okay, so these are the lovely Adidas shoes. This may look familiar. I'm using the same content as the keynote yesterday, but they're really nice shoes, so that's why. Okay, you look close here, you can see all those beautiful details, and this is a full 3D application, so I'm able to see, underneath them, overhead. I can be my own kind of virtual photographer in Dimension. It's great for, you can set different camera bookmarks and change the view really easily. So let's do that. So that way, if I want to look around and then go back to that view that I know I want to take the shot from and render that out, then that's really nice. I want to point out that what you're seeing here is kind of the quick and dirty canvas view of the 3D objects, but it's not the full picture. So what I mean by that is that there's actually so much more detail and realness that you can see once what I'm doing is opening up the render preview window. And rendering, if you want to just have a still image of a 3D asset, then you always have to ask the computer to compute all of the information about the object. So, the way light reacts to it, the way that it's placed, any reflections in the scene, that all gets computed. And it takes some time. So you just saw, and it's actually still going. It's reducing the graininess, and taking out that graininess is the process of the rendering. So Dimension has some really nice tools around this. And it's really easy for you to get started with a pretty professional tool for this type of work. Okay, what's really cool is that you can work with materials, which are anything that's on the surface of a 3D model is what we refer to as materials. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, I'm just going to select the heel part of the shoe, and if I want that to just be a different color, I'm going to do that. Cool. Okay, so I just changed the color of the material. And what is really cool about materials is that materials themselves are so rich and fascinating. Like, you can really get customized to the level of, if you want to change the color of something, then it's just as easy as changing the slider here. And we're not going to see that because it's hidden under something here. Let's choose this one. Okay. And this is what I mean about an image. An image was placed on here just to represent how that rubber is going to look on that shoe surface. So yeah, you can play around with this stuff. It's really fun. Like, I'm just using the metallic slider to slide up and down the metalness of this material, and it makes it really approachable to work in this space. Okay, but we're talking about getting this into AR. So one thing I wanted to show you too is. These are just graphics over here on the left. So anything that I want to create in another application, Photoshop, Illustrator, wherever I create my graphics, I can just bring those onto the surface of any 3D model, and then I get to place them wherever I want. So, if I'm a designer working on these shoes, I can just bring in that graphic and slide it around, resize it, makes it really easy to iterate and find new design choices. Oh, one more comment about images in 3D. So if you're working on a file and you want to change that image real quick, you can double click to edit and it'll open it in either Photoshop or Illustrator. And all you do is make changes to this file, save it, and then when you go back to Dimension, it will have updated with those changes. This is a really nice way to just say, like, okay, I've got Photoshop and Illustrator open side by side, and I can work really seamlessly between the two. Okay, so now we're gonna export to Aero. It's that easy. Okay, so I'm going to show you this file structure, but again, in the future, you probably won't even see this stuff. But to kind of give you a sense of what's happening behind the scenes here, it's going to put it into my Aero, Project Aero input assets folder, and that's where the magic happens. Then our system knows, like, hey, I've got a new file. I want to get this optimized for use in Aero. And so when I save it out, it will actually do that magic in the cloud, and then I will have it ready for me in my Ready Assets folder that I can access from Project Aero. So that's going to happen, and it does take a bit of time. So of course, I pre-baked the demo because nobody likes to sit around and watch computers do their work, right? Okay. But let's look at what that looks like in Aero. Okay, so hello again. You guys are the star of this talk, especially those of you in the front row, especially the guy that gave me the connector thingy for showing you this on the iPad. Thank you very much. So there's that shoe that we worked on in Dimension, and boy, it's a big shoe. I don't know who would wear this, maybe like a big basketball player. But that's okay, we can scale it down. Oops. Let's scale it down. This is more my size. Okay, so it's pretty fun. You'll see, we have some indicators there for the surface of the table, which is nice. You can kind of visualize where that is. And in the future, what some of the stuff we're working on is, kind of breaks your reality to see it. That the cord is there, right? But we're going to be working on things to smartly, occlude things that are in the way so that it really looks like that shoe is in this space. But you can also see those shadows underneath the shoe. They're pretty similar to the shadows from the microphone. So it looks like it's really sitting on that table. Okay, so something we didn't talk about yet is interactivity. We feel that creative storytelling in an AR space is really going to be driven by being able to add interactivity to these experiences. So what I mean by that is, if I'm creating this experience for the end user, the consumer of the experience, I want to not just have them see the shoe. I want them to be able to actually go up to the shoe, interact with it, have the things that the person seeing this experience, feels like they have a impact on the experience. They're driving the results of what's happening. So right now the interactivity options are pretty limited. This is a very early release of the app, but on this shoe, in fact, we have some of these triggers that I can apply. So on tap, I want to be able to cycle through all those variations. So we had 3 shoes in Dimension. Each of them have, slightly different coloring, maybe different fabric. I know that this asset has those in them, and we kind of created it so that it's accessible in the app. And when I play the experience, so now I'm in kind of the view mode. This is what you would send to somebody and have them actually go through themselves. Then I can tap the shoe, that's the trigger, and the action that happens, the behavior that happens, is it cycles through those animations or those variations. So that's fun. Again, pretty limited set of triggers and actions right now, but that's why we want to get this out there early so that we can talk to you about what types of things you feel are important to work on and add to the app first. So I'll show you the other animation that I can trigger from this asset, just because you saw it Monday in the keynote, but we can talk through some of the finer details on this. So I'm gonna start the experience itself. So I author in one space, and then I kind of preview in another space in the app. And when I tap, you use the trigger to tap the shoe, it's going to have this nice exploding animation. And these are just text overlays that are placed in space. And yes, all of that, all of those rich animations were done in another app. So we used, I think we used Maya for this. But in the future, we envision being able to actually bring in those pieces of content and assemble that whole thing here in the app. Can't do it today, but that's where we're headed. All right, other things you can do from this space. Right now, we've added a record button because while people don't have Aero in their hands, because it's a very limited release coming up, we want people to be able to record a video of the experience to be shared. And so that's what you can do. And it just pops up the native file sharing options for your device. And you can also publish. And currently, the publishing option is limited to USDZ. That's a file type that is championed by Pixar and Apple. And if your browser, Safari browser, supports Quick Look, then you can actually share that experience and see it on a web viewer. Okay, so I'm going to switch back. How's everyone doing? Still gotcha? Okay, you're very attentive, so just want to make sure you didn't fall asleep. All right, so we talked about adding dimension. We talked about adding interactivity. I want to give a shout out to 3D Stock, just to remind you that there is a whole marketplace that Adobe's building for 3D assets. And so, yeah, you download these, you export from Dimension, and you're ready to put that right inside Aero. Okay, and for those of you that already work with 3D models, you can use the file system that I showed you to drop the files that you want to convert into that input folder, and then it'll bake it out and make it ready for Aero. All right, so what's next? There's a lot on the horizon here. Only opportunity, right? We're just at the beginning of this journey, and I think the thing I want to hit home here is that, yes, AR has been around for a little bit, but the space itself is going to change so much, especially, we think, when we get this into the hands of more people, and it's not just the very lucky few that can author these things. The requirements and the applications for it are going to expand rapidly. So we are designing the app for what we know people want to do today, but that's going to change so much. So we're ready to learn with you about where to take this. And it's exciting, but we have a long road ahead of us. In the very, very short term, you notice that I didn't mention audio or video content. That is not something we support yet, but it's definitely top of mind. I think especially in the space of like accessibility, designing for accessibility needs, or even just convenience. The input of voice triggers is going to be very important. And then something I didn't show you, but that is also something we're designing is, what about an action that would have the device vibrate, in reaction to a trigger. Okay, and then as I mentioned, we do have a very limited set of interactivity in the app today. The list is short because we want to get the very few right first before we go nuts and expand it. But it's also then very important we understand what to focus on and what to get right first. So that's why we want your input there. So we envision having an authoring space that is much more robust than could fit on even this big mobile device screen. And that is why we believe that a desktop component is part of the picture. Yeah, and then all sorts of crazy stuff like marker-based experiences and things like Pokemon Go, where you show up in a location and that's where people can experience that thing. Those aren't in the app yet. We are considering all options. I think it's really going to depend on what we finesse first and then build out to. And then especially, we really know that the delivery stuff is going to be key. So sure, it's great that you can actually use this to author something, but then so what if you can't easily share it? So that's also a big question mark to figure out. And with that, I think we're ready to just review and then we can take some questions. So Adobe believes that designers should have a voice in augmented reality. That's why we're building this system. And we think that there's definitely a better way to do it than what's been done today. And we're identifying the big pain points and designing to those to take care of them for you. And we would like feedback. So that's the whole point of getting this app out there into your hands. If you want to sign up for early access, what do we mean by that? There's a lot of excitement around this app, and yes, we want to have a lot of people test it, but we are going to be having a rolling invite list. So if you sign up for early access, there's a little button on the bottom of our Project Aero page on adobe.com. What that means is you'll be put into our list of people who are interested to get the app once we are ready to roll it out to many, many people. So we'll start the invites, start sending those out next week. And a lot of factors go into how many people get invited and how big the rollouts will be. And some of that has to do with how many people's feedback we can handle at one time, and also just the service and the app itself. We want to get it in a really rock solid place before it's in the hands of many people. So sign up for early access. That's my long way of saying, yes, please sign up. And don't be offended if you don't get access right away. It'll take us a bit to get everybody on the list access. But we really do appreciate your interest. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And I've left about 15 minutes for questions. I think the only other housekeeping is you're supposed to take the survey. Have to do that. They tell me I have to tell you that. So do that. But then, let's take some questions. And let me drink some water first. And remember the rule that if you ask a question, I will require you to first state what you want to make in AR, and it has to be succinct, your description. So I see one hand up there at the back of the room. Hi.
My name is Stephanie.
Hi.
And I would like to use augmented reality to bring arts trigger system and trigger like full-scale animation so they can actually maybe see their part getting made, or if you were to build a machine and stuff and set it down on the desk and they can see their part actually getting made, would you be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the animation itself, maybe not right away. Could you actually animate that in the app? But if it's already built into the asset, then absolutely.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Here in the front row.
Hello, my name is Charlotte. I'd like to eventually make virtual assembly guides so you can put something together and see how all the pieces fit. I was wondering if either there is right now or there's plans to be interaction between two of the assets. Like if you bring two assets closer together, can they trigger something?
Right. Okay, so I should have repeated the other question too. The question is, are there plans to have assets be able to react to each other, or one triggers the other? And absolutely. Talk about agency a lot in the designing of the interactivity system. So yeah, you can imagine how cool it will be when you can actually set your scene up and have, the door opens and then the dinosaur roars. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna start here.
My name's Zach, and I'm a new media artist, and I work in Autodesk, and I'd like to augment some of my exhibitions using AR.
Cool.
So I'm wondering, I guess, like what plans, or if there are any plans, in terms of the platform playing friendly with Autodesk and its elements, be it like Mudbox for doing in Dimension, and Maya for animating and rigging the AR.
Right. So thank you. The question was, will the system play nice with Autodesk products? Yeah, I mean, we were serious when we said we're content agnostic, so we've set up the service to take in all of the traditional, or most of the traditional 3D file types, so OBJ, FBX, and any information that goes along with those. Yes.
My name's Tom Clark. I'd like to make like a GPS-based like whodunit, where you find a victim and kind of find clues all around. But my question is similar. If you're hello, okay. So if my question is, with the explosion animation, is that done with like an OBJ sequence, or is that just like switching between two stills or two different OBJs when the shoe exploded?
The question was, oh, well, I don't have to repeat it. You have a microphone. That's great. The asset you saw in this demo is very pre-baked, so we did that animation in a 3D software and brought it in. What we envision in the future is, why wouldn't you be able to put your 2D motion graphics into the app and have them play like they do in After Effects?
So keyframe based, not like OBJ sequence.
Right, yeah. So, but there's a lot of different ways we could take that, so. Okay, who's next? This guy, because I can see him under the lights. Hi.
My name's Danny. I work for ADIDAS in New York. I would like to have some sort of art show featuring the designers from a design team. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I would like to have some sort of art show in the Hearst Tower in New York, featuring the designers from our design team, just in and around the building and on the building.
Okay, cool.
My question is, how close are you to you mentioned inclusion before. How close are you to solving that? Is that something that will be in 2019, or is that beyond?
I will not put a time on it, but it's top of mind, I will say. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes.
Hi, I'm Anna, and I'm working as a researcher in augmented reality experience design. So part of my research right now with Aero, it's like you're using the tab, right? What happens when I put my hand in front of it? Is it able to track my hand and I'm able to interact with my hand? Or is it just, screen tapping again? So because if I'm doing that, it's just like 2D platform. AR is about 3D experiences. So would you be thinking about using hand interactivity?
It's not in the app today to do that, but yeah, I mean, our designers are kind of, we should talk to you because our designers are grappling with all of those questions as well. Yeah, definitely something to consider. And then, what about when it's not a tablet or a phone? What about when it's these guys? Yeah, so yeah, we'll get there soon. Yes?
Hi, I'm Billy. Wow, that's really loud. I would like to do more film in AR, and I was hoping, is there any prospects for bringing in either particles or VFX into the system?
Not yet, but that's also one of the things I put on our short list. Our engineers can't wait to do that kind of stuff. But we want to do it the right way, so.
Hello. I work in immersive learning, and I'm interested in making more like a augmented classroom. So a different kind of people see the same augmented world. How far are you in that?
We're at the beginning stages, but that's a cool application. Yeah. Who here has read Ready Player One? That's what it made me think of. Yeah, cool.
Hi. We're working on a lot of geographic-based AR, and our devs keep telling us, there's a great margin of error, but all of our clients keep coming back and saying, well, we want people to be able to walk into a room and leave them an instruction manual there, and they'll remember where the instruction manual is. And that was one example that somebody gave us. So are you guys working on integrating Google Maps APIs or anything in the near future? And if you are, is there anything that can be done, or at least planning towards fixing that margin of error that happens with coordinates?
Yeah, those are great challenges ahead for us. I will say we know that's a great need. We don't feel that the systems are set up well enough yet to really plug in, but we want to be poised to do so when they are ready. There's also a lot of things to figure out in terms of the legality of placing things in locations, et cetera. So, Adobe wants to make sure that the system we go with is tried and true, and it's the right one, right? In terms of the accuracy, I think that accuracy of persistence when you can get back to a scene, it's a hard problem to solve. We're working on it, but then it's kind of, we're only going to be as good as the underlying technology, and that's just where we're at right now. It's not that accurate yet.
Hi, I work for a museum in Arkansas, and our chair wants more AR experiences with the art pieces. And so my question to you is, with brushes and whatnot, the stuff that you guys were showing, is some of that going to be connected to Project Aero, to where people can come in and see the strokes and the brushes of what is present there that the artist created?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could probably do a lot of that today with what we have in even the MVP.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. Can I ask why the chair of the museum wants more AR?
So we showed her a piece, Kindred Spirits, and she just loved it. And I think it's more of the interactivity of having people come in and step into a space and then see it broken apart into different phases where people can walk in and see the depths and the layers that are there within the art piece.
Cool. So it's about engagement.
Yeah, so it's about engagement.
Cool. Great. Okay. Any other questions? This gentleman here. Sorry. Thank you very much for running across the room. She's getting her exercise.
My feet are really tired too, so I'm making you run. I feel really bad. I work in advertising. So what happens a lot is a client would come to us and says, hey, we hear about this AR thing. We want to do something. Give us an idea. And we're like, the standard idea usually is, hey, can we take a tablet or a phone to a store and, basically lift it up on top of a product and get product information. So this might be a newbie question. Is AR location specific? So for instance, you create an AR experience in this room, but
Right.
you sent it to somebody in, say, Cincinnati. Would they be able to see that experience, or would they have to come here to see it? Or is it something that's changeable? You can select one or the other.
Yeah, so that's related to the question the gentleman before had.
Right.
The
I figured his
answer
was
is
specific location, right?
yeah,
But this-
yeah, and there's just a lot of challenges still to be figured out around that. So currently, not yet, but we know it's an expectation that that's where it's headed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I think, unless I'm mistaken, that's all the hands that were up. One more here. Okay, we've got one more.
Hi, my name's Russell, and what I would like to explore with AR would be color theory.
Did you say color theory?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Uh-huh.
My question is, have you guys partnered with any social media and kind of looked at how AR can be applied to that, like in the near future, at least?
Well, there's several people in that space that are already working on that. Snapchat is one of them. But the answer is no, we're not collaborating directly with any social media outlets for that
Thank
yet.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, sorry, if I didn't get your hand, it's because these lights are really bright. So I'm going to actually cut off the questions for now because I do have to get to the airport, but I'll be packing up. So if you want to come and ask me more stuff, then please do. Thank you so much for coming.